Hey everyone, it's me Boona and I'm back with a behind the scenes video for you. So I'm basically going to be showing you part of the process for how I made the lead single from my new debut album, The Blink of an Eye. So the track is called Desert Marathon Runner, and I always put that at the top of my code so I remember which track I'm looking at because it's surprisingly easy to forget. And the first thing I'm going to start with is the first part of the track. So, there's something in particular I want to talk to you about, and that is the drone loop. The drone loop is all we need to focus on. And it uses a synth that I use a lot, which is called Zower. Now this is the same synth that I used to create the opening for The Melodies of Life on the Listening to Life EP that's out now if you want to remind yourself of what that sounds like. And with that particular song, The Melodies of Life, I changed a lot of the presets with the patch, and interestingly, with this one I didn't. And that for me is quite weird because I think of those two patches being quite similar. But all I did with this patch, I'll play it for you now. Then I changed the phase so that it's actually quite slow, which is why you get the big sweeping sound with it, which you don't get with the Melodies of Life. And I changed the sustain value. And usually when I change a patch to make it the notes longer, that's what sustain does. I would usually change the release phase, which is the part after sustain. You'll only really get this if you make some patches of your own. So apologies for being a bit technical, but basically sustain and release both make your notes longer, but when you change the release phase, the volume tapers at the end more noticeably than when you change the sustain. So that also helps get the big sound from this patch. And now I'm going to move on to these two loops here. They're actually drum loops, and I've set them both to finish halfway through, and I've slowed them down a lot as well, so that they sound more like metronomes. And I actually do this a lot in my music. This is probably one of the most prominent examples of me doing it, so that's just one of those things that it should be interesting for you to know, because it's something I do quite a lot. So yeah, that's an interesting insight into what I do. And the other thing I want to talk about is how I put my pieces together, because in the part 2, that actually uses exactly the same patch, the same synth Zower as part 1. It's exactly the same thing because I like the patch so much that I thought actually it would be a real shame if I only used it once. So I used it again, and I made something that sounded completely different, so that was cool. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because the Zower synth also features in part number 3 of the track. I label my tracks like that, it just makes it a bit easier for me. But in this case, the Zower synth has very different presets. So I've inverted the shape of the wave. That's a bit technical, so I'm not going to get into that now. I've cut the range, and I'm not going to get into that either because that's very synth specific. But really I haven't changed the phase of it, and you can see this time I've changed the release, not the sustain, which actually makes a pretty big difference. And the outro for this track, you can hear that now, you probably recognise it. It was used in the first teaser. The outro to the teaser was the outro of this song. Just a little something that you might notice. And so the other thing I want to talk about, because we're not done yet, is the B-side for this track, which is called Trips for the Deluded, which makes sense if you're me. And this is actually a really early track of mine, and I didn't actually like it very much when I first finished making it, because I was like, oh well, I'm not really sure it's very good, and I think that's because of the inspiration for it, because this one is inspired by actually what's now probably a pretty old game for PC called Neverball. Let me know if you played that or not. If you have, this track will make a lot more sense. Especially the first part, because that part in particular is very heavily inspired by the game. The reason I think I didn't like the concept behind this one is because with Desert Marathon Runner, this was actually inspired by the true story of a man, I can't remember his name, but I think he was Italian. And there is a marathon that goes through, I think it's the Sahara Desert, I'm probably getting all the details here wrong, but he decided to take part in this marathon, and there was a sandstorm and he got lost, and that's what this whole song is inspired by. And this one's inspired by some PC game, and it just felt a bit, you know, a bit lame in comparison, almost, I suppose. And then in part 2 of this song, you've got this really cool sort of being out of sync thing. That was an accident. I did not intend to do that. It was almost a proof of concept to see if I sort of had some things going that were synced together and some things that didn't, what would happen. And then I had all these pauses coming in and I thought, that's really cool. I'm going to keep it like that. I had no intention of making it like that. But it sounded really cool. I thought everything would just slowly slide out of time and come back in again, which is similar to a concept I used in the choir number 9, which is also under Listening to Live EP. You can remind yourself of that too, if you want. But yeah, that's basically that. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and I will see you next time.